Hi guys, so welcome to another video for paper 3, unit 6.3, local and global resilience. In this video, we will start off by looking at the concept of crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing actually refers to a number of tasks, but the key thing here is that it's the practice of bringing a crowd of people together to achieve a common goal. Now, these people may be derived from the same community, but they may be spread across the world. The important thing is not really their geographical location, but their commitments to a specified goal. So here in this infographic, we can see we've got the umbrella of crowdsourcing, and they talk about micro tasks, macro tasks, crowdfunding, which is probably the one that you've come across, and contests. So the one that most people have come across is crowdfunding. You may have actually donated to one of these where there's an individual or maybe a charity that is trying to launch a project. So this phenomena is providing organisations to access to new ideas and solutions. And there's an increased level of consumer engagement. Now, there are various platforms up there, and GoFundMe would be one of those. And then there are other platforms as well, where you can, for a fee, you can help the development of a specific project. So a key to this is the internet and social media, bringing these different groups together. And so we can see the importance of networks here, and how really the concept of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and macro tasks, there wasn't an overall plan for this. They've kind of organically developed. So there we've seen an example of how networks and associations between people using new technology can develop organically over time. So this has emerged rather than there being an overall plan to it. In addition to the idea of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, there's also these ideas of macro tasks. So a macro task is a really, really big problem that, for example, conventional government or conventional business hasn't been able to resolve. So bringing together lots and lots of small players to fund a macro task, or to find a solution. So it's also got a research and development aspect to it. So look at this in terms of the toilet, reinventing the toilet. And you will see here, when considering this, you'll see that the civil society has a big role to play in this, but also the process of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, and that does bring together the private sector, the governmental sector, and the civil societies. So we'll have a look. We'll have a look at this one first of all, which is actually from India.
First thing in the morning, what do I see? A pile of shit staring at me. I close my eyes, I step away. No matter where I go, there's no getting away.
Yes, it's actually real, and it did make me laugh when I first watched that. But the point here is that this is actually a real video. This video was actually funded through crowdfunding, and so the background here is that India, for quite a long time, has had quite an impressive space program, but they couldn't get basic things like toilets sorted out. So Prime Minister Modi, in the last 5 years or so, has done an absolutely fantastic job about getting toilets into public toilets, clean public toilets that are for free, into communities all around India. So no longer, when you go to India, do you see people defecating in the street. That is now a thing of the past because they've got these toilets. Part of the problem was people weren't using them. So they used the crowdfunding project to fund this video and this groovy little song. So now we're going to have a look at a clean water project. This is a crowdsourcing project, and I believe there is Microsoft behind this project. So we'll have a look at this clean water project, which is reinventing the toilets.
Poop. Doo-doo. Number 2. Caca. Crap. Shit. There's a ton of it, and dozens of words to describe it. But for 2.6 billion people around the globe, there's no place to actually do it. Imagine that. No reliable sanitary toilet. What would you do? Well, what you have to do, use anything you can find, which means in no time, you've got a big pile of problems, like diseases, deadly diseases that are filling half the hospital beds in developing countries.
Okay, so particularly with cholera and lots of other diseases as well in the food and health unit, we've seen that this is a significant problem still in the 21st century, a significant problem for 2.5 billion people. I've been quite clear on this aspect of cholera. It is totally unacceptable that given our technology and the wealth that this world has had, we are allowing it to happen. It doesn't just happen, we allow it to happen. And that's a conscious decision on the part of the global community to allow this to happen.
A serious, well, crappy scenario that by working in partnership, we can change. How? By doing something that hasn't been done for centuries, reinventing the toilet. The flush toilet, as you and I know it, requires a massive amount of sewer infrastructure and immense amounts of water. Two things increasingly hard to come by. Now is the time to eliminate the health hazards, recycle waste, and turn crap into valuable resources like clean burning fuel, fertilizer, and believe it or not, fresh water. Today, our toilets can't do that, but the toilet of tomorrow can. Reinventing the toilet. Let's get our shit together and do it.
Yeah, so that's by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So you can see there the flush toilet is really not a viable way of dealing with human feces. Takes a lot of water, takes a lot of infrastructure, and also there's a lot of sewage processing going there. So that is very resource heavy and it's very, very expensive. And many countries simply haven't got the capacity to provide flush toilets and deal with flush toilets. So I'll let you have a look and we get this idea of reinventing the toilet. Also, you need to watch this video in conjunction with the departmental website. There's some information there. China is developing one of these toilets. And the key thing here is to reduce the environmental and resource footprint of the toilet and dealing with the waste. And also we've got components coming in here of the circular economy. We've seen in Singapore, for example, how they actually do recover drinking water from sewage. There's actually lots of very, very useful things in sewage. It just has to be dealt with properly. So there they suggest is purifying it and turning it into burnable fuel and turning it into fertilizer. there are specific technologies that have to be in place for it to be safe to do that. And one of the big challenges is heating up to a high enough temperature to kill the bacteria, but also the presence of heavy metals and ensuring those heavy metals, if you're going to use it as fertilizer, is removed from the sewage. In English, we do have the term night soil. That's just a really polite way of talking about fertilizing your own crops with your own poo. Night soil has been used for a long time, but obviously if we're going to start doing that and getting elements of the circular economy in, we need to make sure that it's sterile, and if we're going to use it for food crops, we need to make sure that those heavy metal contaminants are removed from it. A little bit scary actually when we look at not only the bacteria content of our poo, but its toxicity as well. Because remember, all those chemicals, all those medicines, all those things that go in our body ultimately end up in our poo and our wee. So it's actually quite toxic, and those toxins can build up over a period of time. A little bit alarming. This sounds a little bit gross, but if human flesh, this is really gross, but if human flesh were to be sold as for consumption on the human market, it'd actually be illegal because of the levels of dioxin and toxins inside us. We are actually too toxic. Obviously, we wouldn't do that, but theoretically, if we did, it would be illegal because of those dioxin and toxin levels in us. Bit scary. Okay, so we're going to go on now to have a quick look at cyber security. And we've talked about this before. It emanates from this whole thing of this Internet of Things. We've talked about how we are increasingly moving towards the Internet of Things. Everything is connected. Some fundamental weaknesses in there is actually the same code underneath all of these devices, and that code is like 20, the source code is 20 or 30 years old, and it does have critical vulnerabilities in it. So cybersecurity is a big issue. Again, quickly with this infographic, look at the use of color, the blue, the black and the white. That's very specific. You know this is an infographic about something that is not very nice. Remember, on those infographics, you again will be asked how to pull information and data from this sheet, from the infographic in your exam. You'll be asked to say how they have used things like colors, fonts, language, words to portray the information in a certain way. And then typically they will go on to ask you to suggest ways to improve the infographic. Like I've said before, all the way through this unit, 10 marks. Really easy 10 marks compared to the amount of work that you would have to do if you were writing an essay. Okay, so we'll stop there, and our next video we'll go on to look at e-passports and what they mean to our global networks.